Protest against the American military establishment was, of course, nothing new. President Eisenhower had warned of the increasing power of the military-industrial complex 8 years previously. But in 1967, a new and frankly weird element entered the Pentagon's list of problems.
Playfulness became increasingly important as police pressure increased. And also, I think that independent of police pressure, playfulness was seen as some kind of an antidote to the excessive seriousness and ponderousness of the old left. And there was a feeling that there should be a youthful, humorous, playful energy. The psychedelics were also a factor. The psychedelics, besides being instructive, were fun.
And we're going to assemble a mass of holy men to surround the Pentagon. And they're going to surround it with chanting and love and drum beating. And the Pentagon is going to rise into the air on October 21st. And when it gets about 300 feet in the air, it's going to start to vibrate. Slowly at first, and then a little quicker. And all the evil spirits are going to pour out.
There were 8 or 10 of us meeting in New York to talk about the levitation of the Pentagon. And all of us had been living on the East Coast. But we had a surprise visitor to this meeting, Michael Bowen, who heard about it on the West Coast and went to Mexico to consult with shamans on the matter of levitation, and then came to our meeting in New York, surprising all of us because we were just trying to put together an imaginative media project. We didn't expect the building to actually leave terra firma, but this fellow arrived from the shamans of Mexico with ideas of how to make it actually levitate. And I began to see there an interesting difference between East Coast and West Coast at that time, East Coast being into media project more, and West Coast being into lifestyle.
Lifestyle on the West Coast was based on the belief that what was possible was limited only by the human imagination. To say free was to be free. If you could think it, you could make it come true.
People in this community are practicing what people have spoken about for centuries, and it threatens to overthrow the rest of the American establishment, which is built upon the motives of greed, anger, lust, and self-interest. The idea for the Oracle came to me in a dream. I woke up in the morning and remembered seeing a newspaper being read all over the world with rainbows on it. And I went out in the streets and started to tell people I had a dream about a newspaper being read all around the world with rainbows on it. Everyone said, wow, what a great idea, let's do it.
The underground press, the music, the happenings, and the new ways of protesting the war were all products of the same tide of playfulness. If the rest of the world had difficulty understanding the message, it was hardly surprising.
We even did lettering that didn't say anything at all, that would really stop people. But people, you know, we would drive, we'd be around the neighborhood, and there'd be our posters up in store windows, and there would be a crowd of people around them, looking at them and trying to figure out what they say. And it's just, you know, it's total involvement. You know, they almost have to go get stoned to come back to read them.
I remember going to Haight-Ashbury district, where the Grateful Dead sort of lived in San Francisco, and going round to see them, because we had mutual friends, and I went round and sort of called on them. It was just like that, you know, just like mates and stuff.
What we're thinking about is a peaceful planet. We're not thinking about anything else. We're not thinking about any kind of power. We're not thinking about any of those kind of struggles. We're not thinking about revolution or war or any of that. That's not what we want. Nobody wants to get hurt. Nobody wants to hurt anybody. We would all like to be able to live an uncluttered life, a simple life, a good life, you know, and like think about moving the whole human race ahead a step or a few steps.
I think, personally, that the more people turn on, the better world it's going to be.
I remember thinking, I can't see this lasting because the media are going to get this. And all this flower power and Haight-Ashbury, and it pretty soon turned to be Rip-Off Street, you know, where they knew kids were running away from home and going to Haight-Ashbury to be a wonderful, peaceful person. So, of course, all the rip-off merchants started to populate those places, Sunset Strip, Haight-Ashbury.
Sensational newspaper and television reports from the Haight-Ashbury had created a stereotype of hippie life as just one long round of non-stop sex and drugs. By autumn, quite apart from the tourists, the area was overwhelmed with confused young people attracted by that caricature.
People imitate. It's not from their own soul, from their own conviction of what something is. It's an imitation. And that's why we had the Death of Hippie event, is to beat the media its own game, trying to say, you know, don't do something because somebody else is doing it because this is how you feel about it. This is your nature. This is who you are. This is why you act. This is why you are. We carried a coffin down Haight Street, and people threw beads and trinkets into the coffin, and then it was taken down to the Panhandle, which is just right outside of Haight, and burned as a pyre is burned. On the day of Death of Hippie, we gave everything away. There was one Vietnam vet who came in, and he had just come back, and he came in. We stayed open all night, and playing Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band.
When I get older, losing my hair, many years from now, will you still be sending me a Valentine? Birthday greetings, bottle of wine. If I'd been out till 2:45, would you lock the door? Will you still need me? Will you still feed me when I'm 64?
One guy from Vietnam gave me a medal of St. Michael. It was that feeling of gift and sharing and then I headed out for the exorcism of the Pentagon.
There are slightly more than 100,000 people here.
And around the rest of the Western world, there were simultaneous demonstrations of support, coordinated by the newborn Vietnam Solidarity Campaign. The war was no longer simply an American issue. Meanwhile, in Washington, apart from the orthodox protest speeches, the task of writing and conducting the actual ritual of exorcism fell to Ed Sanders of the New York group The Fugs. He invoked a wide variety of forces.
In the name of Zeus, in the name of Anubis, god of the dead, in the name of sea-born Aphrodite, in the name of the
Thoth and Ruth and Pan and Thespis, I call down the spirits of blah, blah, blah into the blah, 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 you know, and blah, blahing and the blah, blah. And this right-wing nut started on a cherry, you know, cherry pickers like this elevated roost that they clean trees with or something. Anyway, this guy was waving a bio, I think it was Reverend Carl McIntyre. He came toward us, intoning, you know, thou shalt rot in hell, hippy dippies, you know, and so I was afraid he was going to ram us. So I was saying things, you know, I'm going to sew up your sphincter ani with 12 troll teeth or something. I don't know what I did, you know, something. And so he got out of the way. And Mailer and what's his name scooted by. Dwight McDonald, Mailer, and Robert Lowell were oozing up toward where they sat in. And it was, you know, it was quite weird, you know, but interesting. For the first time in my life, I got to insert rose stems with nice roses on the end of it down into the barrels of these rifles. And these poor 20-year-old kids were, you know, some guy in striped pants was shoving a rose petal down his M16 or whatever.
I'm fixing a hole where the rain gets in and stops my mind from wandering where it will go.
And there was this image that appeared in public of a somewhat timid, tender kid, but courageous, with his flower, poking it into the barrel of a soldier who was his same age, but in the wrong place at the wrong time, sweating and worried, and holding his rifle up against his fellow brother, college boy. An image of flower power. Flower power meant more than just walking around with flowers in your hair. It really meant the power of Earth itself. The dissolving of the authority of the Pentagon was symbolized by that moment of putting the flower in.
About 3 a.m. it went up. Didn't go up to 100 feet we wanted, but it turned orange, vibrated, went up about 10 feet. You can see it if you look at the pictures careful. And those pictures went all over the world. They had to bring out all their guards, you know, thousands of guards with bayonets and helmets and tanks and jeeps to guard. And it was that picture, you see, that we were looking for. If you want to conduct this war in Vietnam, you're doing it under siege of your own people. Now, again, how many of your own people? It's all these are irrelevant. Enough. Enough.